Hello, my name is Alida Esmail, and today I am offering to you a 60-minute Pilates class. I've done this class with individuals from all age groups, and during some exercises I will propose some modifications or different progressions that you can try out depending on how you feel today. But first and foremost, please take care of your body, listen to what it needs today, and adapt any exercise as need be. Today we'll be using a block if you have one, or if you don't have one, you can also grab a towel, roll it up, and use it instead of a block. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Let's start lying on our back on the mat. We have our knees bent, hip width apart, feet flat on the mat. Heels are in line with the sit bones, the bony parts of the bum. And we're just going to start with a little tilt in the pelvis forwards and backwards. So you can always place your fingertips on your hip bones, feeling the hip bones lower towards the mat, letting the pubic bone reach up towards the ceiling. And then in the other direction, opening up the space between the lower back and the mat, letting the hip bones reach up towards the ceiling. As you continue with the tilting, let's relax the shoulders, the neck, and the head. Taking a nice long inhale with the tilt in one direction, and exhale in the other direction. Again, inhale, and exhale. Few more times like this. As you continue, take a little look at your legs. See if you can release any tension in the thighs, the hamstrings, the glutes, the lower legs, the feet. Maybe give a little wiggle to the toes. You can rest your arms alongside the body. Continuing to breathe, inhale. And exhale. So the goal here is to isolate the movement of the pelvis, finding a little bit of what mobility you have today in the hips, feeling that hip crease, feeling the curve in the lower back. And then we're going to come to neutral pelvis. That's about the midpoint between both tilts. The two hip bones and the pubic bone creating a flat triangle along the front of the hips, aiming for that flat surface to be about parallel to the floor. Again, take a nice big inhale, expand the back of the rib cage, open the space between the ribs, and exhale, we're going to pull the belly slightly in towards the spine, maybe about 30%. Keeping those shoulders relaxing down. We're going to stay in the neutral pelvis, stay engaged in that core. Inhale the fingertips up towards the ceiling and all the way up above the head. Exhale, bring the arms right back towards the ceiling and down on the mat. Again, inhale, reach the fingertips, let the shoulder blades slide down towards the hips. Exhale, bring it back. One more time, inhale, and exhale. Still keeping that neutral pelvis. Let's cross the right hand over the left in front of the belly. Slide the fingertips up towards the head, reach the fingertips long, and come back alongside the body. This time that left arm over the right. Again, slide the fingertips up as if you're taking off a shirt. Reach the fingertips above your head. Exhale, bring it back. Again, inhale, right crosses over left. Reach it, slide it up above the head. Exhale, back. One last time. Inhale, left over right. Exhale back. Good. This time let's bring the fingertips behind the head. Again, sliding those shoulder blades slightly down the back, reaching the lower tips of the shoulder blades down towards the hips. Elbows are wide in your peripheral vision. Slight nod of the chin towards the chest without lifting the head yet. Then we lift the head, reach the spine nice and long up and over to our first ab curl. Exhale, bring it down all the way to the mat. Again, inhale, slight nod of the chin to the chest. Peel the upper spine away from the mat. Exhale, lower down. This whole time we're keeping a neutral pelvis. Relaxed in the legs, relaxed in the toes. Nice and wide across the chest. Feeling the flow of the breath move through the body. Inhale, expand the back of the rib cage. Exhale, a little reminder for that belly in towards the spine. Nice and engaged in our transverse, both of the hip bones connected towards one another. Exhale, bring it down. With this one, we're going to add a single hip fold in the right leg, pointing the right toes, ab curl up, right knee over the right hip. Everything comes down. Single hip fold on the left leg, reach it up still wide across the chest, and bring it back. Again, inhale, exhale. The whole time keeping a neutral pelvis, long back of the neck, aiming to find a 90-degree angle in the hip and in the back of the knee. So as you come up, keep that neutral pelvis, feel the hip crease, knee perpendicular line right over the hip, and reach it down. Again, inhale, point the toes. Exhale, back down. One more time each side. Inhale. Exhale. Keeping a long neck. Inhale. And exhale. Good. Relax the arms along the side of the body, just releasing on the mat. And we're going to come up to a double hip fold. So both legs are in the 90-degree position in the hips and in the knees. Moving just the ankles, flex the feet, curl the toes back towards the knees, and point the toes. Again, flex and point. Here we want to have the lower legs parallel to the mat. Continuing to release the shoulders, the neck, and the head. We're in a neutral pelvis, natural curve in the lower back. Continuing to flow the breath through the body. Rolling the ankles in one direction. And in the other direction. Bring the knees in towards the chest. Give yourself a little squeeze. If it feels good, you can always rock from side to side, giving a little massage to the lower back. Bringing the legs back to a double hip fold, pointing the toes. Bring the fingertips towards the back of the head, peeling back up to our ab curl. If ever it's too much for the upper body, you can keep the upper body down on the mat. We're going to go into our toe taps, keeping the 90-degree angle behind the back of the knee, switching from leg to leg, letting the thigh bone lower to tap the toes down towards the mat. Staying up in that ab curl, elbows wide. And with the toe taps, we're going to give a little switch to the feet. Flex and point. Little extra coordination. Flex and point. So when the feet are flexed, the heel taps towards the mat. And when the toes are pointed, the toes tap. Inhale. Exhale. In and out. Two more times. In and out. Good. Release it down, knees in towards the chest. Another little squeeze. In this squeeze, let the shoulders release down. Release any tension in the neck. We come back to our double hip fold, toes are pointed. This time keeping the upper body down onto the mat. Lengthening the right leg to a high diagonal. Lower it down to a hover towards the mat without touching. Bring it back up to a diagonal. Bend the knee back in. Left side. Lengthen and lower. Lift and bend it back. Always coming back to that single hip fold position. Here we have our belly in towards the spine, nice and connected in our core. Continuing to breathe. Every time we lengthen the leg, really reaching long, point the toes, open the space in the hip socket. And keeping that length as we lower to the hover, bringing it back up and in. 2 more times. Neutral pelvis. Inhale. Exhale. This time we're going to squeeze the legs together. Flex the feet. Bring the palms of the hands onto the thighs. Peel up into the ab curl. Keep the neutral pelvis. We press the hands into the thighs. The thighs press back into the hands, so nothing ends up moving. Keep the shoulder blades sliding down the back, nice and wide in the chest. We press the hands and the thighs towards one another, holding that press for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release the knees in towards the chest. Give yourself a hug. Maybe feeling a nice little shake in that last exercise. That's good. Working hard. Keep the legs squeezing together, this time pointing the toes. Fingertips come back behind the head, peeling up into our ab curl. Here we're going to stay up in the ab curl. Keep squeezing the knees and ankles together, reaching the toes nice and long. We lengthen both legs as one to a high diagonal and bring the knees back to a double hip fold. Squeezing together the whole time, engage those inner thighs, lengthen the legs, and bring it back. This time, exhale as you lengthen. Inhale back. Aiming to keep that neutral pelvis the whole time. If ever you feel too much strain in the lower back, you can always come into imprint by touching the lower back towards the mat, engaging a little bit more in your center. Again, work with what feels best for you today. Keeping that belly slightly in towards the spine, lengthen, bend it in. Again, lengthen and in. For 3, 2, exhale, inhale, last one, out, and in, release it down, knees in towards the chest. Bring the feet back down onto the mat. Heels in line with the sit bones back into our neutral pelvis. Here we're going to bring the fingertips up towards the ceiling, about in line with the chest. Glue the palms of the hands together. Here we're going to keep our shoulders relaxing down slightly. Elbows are micro bend in the elbows, but arms are nice and long. Here we're just going to rotate the rib cage, so moving the palms of the hands slightly towards the right side, keeping both hips square. So keep that left hip anchored down towards the mat. Bring it back to center and right away over to the other side. So warming up this rotation in the rib cage, moving around the spine. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So you can let the eyes follow the palms of the hands. Here we want to make sure that there's no sliding in the hands. They're really glued together. And the arms are nice and long. Supported in the core. Knees stay super still. So they're not sliding or moving from side to side. Just the rib cage moving. Everything from the belly down stays still. Last side. Bring it back to center. Coming back up into our ab curl, hands behind the head, and up into a double hip fold, little space between the legs. Here you have an option of either staying with bent knees. We're going to go into a modified bicycle. So as we tap the left toes down, we cross the left shoulder towards the right knee. Maybe a little coordination exercise there. And then as we switch to the other side, twisting the right shoulder towards the left knee. So we're coming really back to those toe taps in the lower body and adding a little rotation of the rib cage in the upper body. Here we want to really keep the elbows nice and wide. So we want to avoid closing the elbow in to cross towards the opposite knee. Really think of a strap or an elastic band attached from the opposite shoulder to the knee. So keeping that chest wide. Neutral pelvis, pointing the toes and keeping the 90-degree angle behind the backs of the knees. So this is one version or modified version, or you can come into a long leg to a hover on the mat and then switch. So more of a bicycle motion that you might be familiar with. Keep strong in that core, almost there. Exhale with every switch. Out, out. Feel that strength. Work through for 6, 5, 4, 3. You can do it. 2, and 1. Back to center. Release it down. Knees in towards the chest. Again, relax those shoulders. Maybe rocking from side to side if that feels good. Placing the feet back down onto the mat. If you have your block, grab your block, place it between the knees. Or if you're using a towel, same thing, just place it between your knees. Rolling back down onto your back. Here, bring your heels close in towards your sit bones. Maybe you're able to graze the back of your heels with your fingertips. We're going to go into our neutral bridge. First, find that neutral position, lying on your back, arms on the mat, palms facing down. Here we want to actively squeeze towards the block or the towel, activating the inner thighs. Press down into the base of the feet. Tilt the pelvis like we did at the beginning of class, pubic bone up towards the ceiling. Continue to roll up the spine, pressing down into the feet, anchoring down across the upper back, and come into a high diagonal. So we're aiming for a long diagonal between the shoulders and the knees, hips creating that straight line. Really open out the front of the hips, long lower back, tilting the pubic bone up, wide across the chest. Inhale, bring the fingertips up towards the ceiling and up above the head like we've done before. Exhale, bring the arms back, hips stay high. Keep pressing into the base of the feet. Inhale. Exhale. Really squeeze the glutes, squeeze the hamstrings. This is a lot of work for the back side of the body. Let's use it. Opening up the front of the hips, lengthen the thighs. Exhale. One more time. Inhale, arms up above the head. Exhale, one vertebra at a time with the arms. Roll the spine down onto the mat. Tapping the lower back, then tilting the pelvis back to neutral. Release the block or the towel and give a little windshield wiper in the knees from side to side. So just letting the knees fall to one side and then to the other. Giving a little release for the hips, for the back. We're going to come back to that same position. So keep your feet flat on the mat, heels in line with the sit bones. Replace the block or the towel between the knees. Again, activate those inner thighs. Really squeeze the knees towards the block. Neutral pelvis to start. Anchor down in the backs of the shoulders and the feet. Tilt the pubic bone up towards the ceiling. Roll the hips up to a high diagonal. Here you can either keep the arms down or we bring the fingertips towards the ceiling. Still anchoring down across the upper back. Really open the space between the shoulder blades. Nice wide surface on the upper back towards the mat. Squeeze the block. We're going to go for a little pulse of the hips towards the ceiling. Squeezing the glutes, the hamstrings. Press it up, 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 up. So just about maybe a couple inches of movement. Not very much. Press down through the feet. Really use that point of support. Lengthen the lower back. Feel the glutes and the hamstrings. Exhale with every pulse. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. With control, roll it back down. Really take your time, one vertebra at a time, without skipping any points on the spine. Release the block or the towel. Windshield wiper the knees from side to side. Place the block or the towel off to the side. Lengthen the legs on the mat. Pointing the toes. We're going to open the legs in external rotation. So bringing the heels together, the toes apart. Bring the fingertips back onto the fronts of the hip bones. So feel those hip bones just coming back into a neutral pelvis, this time with the legs long. And let's separate the legs about hip width apart. So there's tiny space between the heels. Keep the upper body releasing down, belly in, hip bones connected. Activate that transverse abdominis. You can keep the hands on the front of the hips. The right leg is going to lengthen as if you want to touch the wall in front of you. And lengthen the leg up to a diagonal. So here the priority is really lengthening the leg, keeping that neutral pelvis, rather than how high you get. And bring it back down just to a hover. Don't touch the mat. And come right back up. Really working those inner thigh muscles and the rotator muscles. Lengthen the leg. Open the space in the hip socket. Really as if someone's pulling that thigh bone out of the hip. Down to a hover. 2 more times. Lengthen and lift. And lower. Last one. Up. And lower. Good. Release it down. Give a little shake to the legs. We move to the left side. This time let's flex the feet. So kind of Charlie Chaplin in the feet, really lengthening out through the heels, so much that the heels might pop a little away from the mat. Curling the toes back towards the face. We're in neutral pelvis as before. And just check in with the lower ribs. See if they're popping up towards the ceiling or if they can engage towards the tops of the hips. Really feeling that abdominal engagement. Moving to the left leg, lengthen, reach long out through that heel. Keep that external rotation in both legs. Lift the leg to a diagonal. and lower to a hover. Without touching the mat, we go right back up. Keep the rib cage nice and connected, opening the back of the ribs out towards the mat. Lift and lower. A few more times. Inhale. Exhale. Again, think of that thigh bone reaching out of the hip socket. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. And lower it down with control. Shake out the legs. And here we're going to roll over onto one side, so a side lying position. You can lengthen the lower arm and rest your head on that arm. And pointing the toes. So here the goal is to line up the body in one long line. So the toes are in line with the hips, with the sit bones, that are in line with the shoulders, the top of the head, out through the crown of the head. So take a second here to come back to your breath. Find that neutral alignment even in this side lying position. Keeping that belly in towards the spine, about 30%. And lifting that waist away from the mat. You might not necessarily have a complete space between the waist and the mat. That's all right. But we want to make sure we're not releasing that stomach down. So just a light support to lengthen out both sides of the waist. Pointing the toes. Keep both legs nice and engaged. And lengthen that right leg up to a diagonal. So here, same idea of lengthening out, reach that thigh bone out of the hip socket as you lift. Keep the core engaged, lengthen down. If you have your fingertips on the mat, that's all right. You can have them there, but let's see if you can avoid putting any pressure down into the mat. So just a light tap of the fingertips. Again, adapt as need be. Another progression is you're able maybe to bring your hand to your hip or even the fingertips up towards the ceiling. Challenging a little bit more of that core support, balance. Keeping the shoulders stacked on top of one another, so as if you're squished between two walls. Same thing with the hips, keeping one right over the other. Inhale, exhale. We want to feel this in the side of the hip, maybe a tiny bit into the glutes, keeping both legs parallel. So both kneecaps are pointing in the same direction, forward. But the lower leg is still very engaged, kneecaps sliding up the thighs. You should feel this in the side of the hip. Inhale. Exhale. On this next one, we're going to stay up with that top leg and find a little circle. Again, challenge yourself with where you place your hand. See if you can just get the leg to move without the rest of the body wiggling. Other direction. Keep lengthening out of both legs. Feel the burn. And lower down. Great. Let's flex the feet. This time we're going to start with the top leg, but coming just hip height, so no higher. That top leg is going to stay in place. The lower leg is going to reach up to tap the top leg and back down. So just the lower leg moving here. Lift and lower. If ever you feel it's a little bit too much for that side hip bone towards the mat, you can actually grab your towel and place it for a little bit of extra padding. Again, you can challenge yourself with where you place your hand, either the fingertips slightly tapping on the mat, hand to the hip, or up towards the ceiling. See if you can keep the calmness in the rest of the body. The goal here is to not move that top leg. Yes, you're still going to feel it in the side of the hip and in the glute, but we also want to activate the inner thigh of the lower leg. For 3, 2, still connected in the core, lower ribs connected with the top of the hips, and 1. Lower both legs down, come back to pointed toes. This time squeeze the legs together, keep that squeeze, and lift both legs together and lower. Lift and lower. Still thinking about lengthening out of the legs. Lengthen and lift. Lengthen and lower. Really feeling the long side of the waist on the top and bottom. Inhale. Exhale. Stacked in the shoulders, stacked in the hips. In and out. One more time. And lower it down. This time we're going to bend the knees to a double hip fold in this side lying position. So come back to 90 degrees in the hip crease, 90 degrees in the backs of the knees. You can relax the feet. Here, sit bones are pointing towards the wall beneath you, or below you. Not the one with the mat, but the one towards your feet. So we have our neutral pelvis, still supported in our waist. Hand is going to come on that top hip. So it can really help lengthen that top hip away from your face so that we're not crashing down into the side of the waist and releasing the stomach. Nice and supported, shoulder blades wide, shoulder blades sliding down on the back. We keep the feet together, we open the knee and close. Open and close. If you want a little extra today, you can lift the knee and the ankle together and lower, demanding a little bit more strength from the glute muscles. Keep that neutral pelvis and lengthening both sides of the waist. Inhale. Exhale. In, expand the space between all of the ribs. Exhale back. In and out. In and out. You can either continue with this repetition or going one step further, we stop with the height of the leg, knee and ankle lifted. Flex the foot. We kick the leg forward and bring it back. Again, kick it forward. See if you can keep that neutral pelvis, lengthening the back of the leg. Bend the knee. Again, lengthen and back. Again, do what modification feels good for you or which progression. If you're in this kicking one, see if you can really keep the height of the leg as you kick. Lengthening both sides of the waist 2 more times. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. And release. Lower the leg down. You can even keep a little length in it. Down towards the floor. And open the chest towards the ceiling. Taking a nice twisting stretch. Let the knee, the opposite shoulder, elbows, arms just release down towards the mat. With every exhale, letting the rib cage also fall a little bit further into the twist. One more breath. Slowly roll back onto the same side. This time we're going to keep our knees bent but lengthen them in line with the hips and come and prop yourself up onto your forearm. We're going to come into a modified side plank. So we have our knees, our lower legs pressing down towards the mat. Hips are going to press a little bit forward. Once you get up, you can find a little adjustment. And using the full forearm, palm of the hand, fingers, knuckles to press down to reach out of the shoulder. So at no point do we want to be collapsing down. So nice and supported for that shoulder blade down, activating some of the back muscles. Anchor down towards the mat, lifting the hips, maybe a little adjustment to find that position. Hand comes onto the hip, or again, fingertips towards the ceiling. Keep pressing into the forearm, reach out of the shoulder. Reach the hips up. If it's too much for your neck, you can always turn your nose towards the mat. Staying up in this position, either you stay here for a few breaths, or coming into a little rainbow, hips come a little higher, arm up above the head, and back to the diagonal, fingertips to the ceiling. Still pressing out of the shoulder, press down through the lower legs. Inhale, rainbow. Exhale, back. Last one, inhale. Exhale. With control, bring the hips down and sit it up. And take a little stretch for the lower side of the waist, the underside. Maybe rotating the head from side to side, give a little release for the neck. And relax that side. We roll over onto the other side, back to our side lying position. So set it up on the second side, starting with the feet pointed, toes pointed. One long line in the body, toes in line with the hips, shoulders and head. Belly in, nice and supported, away from the mat, lengthening both sides of the waist. Hips are stacked, shoulders are stacked. And crown of the head lengthening out as well. So eyes are forward. Starting with the top leg, lengthen a little bit further. Really open that space in the hip socket. Lift it up towards the ceiling and back down. Lift and lower. Lift and lower. Again, choosing where you want your hand to be. If you have a little tap of the fingertips towards the mat, that's good. Or bringing the hand to the hip for a little extra challenge, or fingertips towards the ceiling. Keep the lower ribs in control, in connection with the top of the hips. With every inhale, expand the back of the rib cage. Open out the space of the ribs even towards the sides. Really finding a three-dimensional breath. Stacked in the hips and the shoulders. Strong in both legs. Inhale. Exhale. In. Out. 2. On this last one, bring the leg back up, keeping it at the height that you're working with. Find a little circle in one direction. Still wide across the chest, strong in both legs. You should feel this in the side of the hip. Inhale. Exhale. Switch directions, little circle the other way. Aiming to keep those legs parallel. Almost there. Inhale. And exhale, release it down. Flexing the feet, bringing that leg back up just hip height. You're still going to be working the side of the hip and the glute. but not too far. Really press out through the base of the feet as if you want to stand on the side wall. This time activating the inner thigh of the lower leg. Lift it to go tap and squeeze towards the top leg, and then just the lower leg comes back down. Again, lift and lower. Keep that belly in towards the spine, neutral pelvis supported in your core. Inhale. Exhale. See if you can release any tension in the neck and shoulders. Keeping those heels in line with the sit bones. Check in with yourself. See if you're creeping those legs a little bit forward. Bring it back in line with the rest of the body. For 3, 2, and 1. Bring both legs back down. Pointing the toes. Again, still super strong in both legs. Squeezing the legs together. So inner thighs, imagine you have a piece of paper, or even grab a piece of paper, place it between your thighs, really squeeze the legs. See if you can keep the paper or even a pencil or whatever between your thighs the whole time. Both legs lift and lower. Remember, you can always place your towel under the hip if it's a bit too hard of a surface for you. Keeping the toes in line with the hips. Again, watch out, they're not creeping forward or backwards. Inhale. Exhale. In and out. 2 and 1. And back down. Bending the knees into our double hip fold in the side lying position. Like we did on the first side, check back in with your alignment. Neutral pelvis, natural curve in the lower back. Belly in towards the spine, hold in. And a little support for the waist away from the mat. Either keeping the feet together, opening the top knee, or if on the other side you went with the knee and the ankle up, go ahead with that on this side as well. Hand is on the hip for everyone. Really use that hand to press the hip away from the face, lengthening the top side of the waist, keeping it nice and long the whole time. Tapping a little bit further into the glute muscles, gluteus maximus. Exhale. Inhale. Out. And in. Few more times. Again, choose whatever variation, whatever progression is working for you. If you want to take it one step further, keep the knee and the ankle nice and high. Flex the foot and lengthen the leg forward. Reach the sit bone back, really opening the back of the leg, keeping that neutral pelvis. Bend the knee back. Again, lengthen the leg forward and bend. Lengthen and bend. Almost there. For 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release the leg down onto the floor. Open the chest towards the ceiling. You can readjust the chest, finding a twisting stretch. Every exhale, finding a little bit deeper of a twist. See if you can relax the ribs, Relax the knees and the shoulders. And slowly bring it back onto that same side. This time propping up into our modified side plank. We have bent knees and pressing the hips slightly forward. Again, you can adjust once you get up in the air. Anchoring the forearm, the palm of the hand, the knuckles down towards the mat and the lower legs. Really opening out of the shoulders. Same thing as the other side. Can't say it too many times. We want to avoid crashing down in the shoulder. Slide the shoulder blade down and really anchor down towards the mat to open up that shoulder socket. Pressing down towards the mat, lift the hips up, finding a nice diagonal between the knees, hips, shoulders, and crown of the head. Either staying there or reach the fingertips up towards the ceiling. Keep anchoring down in the forearm. Reach out at the shoulder. Stacked in the hips and the shoulders. Inhale the hand up above the head. Rainbow in the hips. Hips come a little higher. Back to a diagonal. Fingertips to the ceiling. Keep pressing into the forearm and the lower legs. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more. In. Again, if it's too much for your neck, you can turn the nose towards the mat. Last one, in and out. With control, keep pressing into the forearm, lower the hips slowly towards the mat. Sit it up, give that side a little stretch. Really opening out the sides of the ribs, side of the rib cage. Again, you can always turn the head from side to side. A little release to the neck. And release that side. We're going to come onto an all fours position. Onto all fours. So knees right under the hips. Hands under the shoulders. Micro bend in those elbows to really make sure we're not crashing into those joints, especially if you have the tendency to be hyperextended. Really find that micro bend tapping into the strength of the muscles. And knees right under the hips. We're in our neutral pelvis. Here we're going to let the chest lower slightly towards the mat without bending the elbows more. So the shoulders will reach up towards the ceiling. And then press into the palms of the hands. Open the space between the shoulder blades. Again, let the chest lower. And press into the palms of the hands. Let the upper back widen. 2 more times. And back to neutral. Here, we're going to go to our opposite arm and leg reach. Right arm, left leg slides forwards and back on the mat. Here, keep the hip bones pointed towards the mat. So we want to avoid rolling out in the hips. Bring those hip bones square. Long lower back, neutral pelvis. And if you feel comfortable today, you can lift the arm and the foot away from the mat. Coming to, at most, parallel to the mat, but not any further. So keep that length, reaching the fingertips and the toes. Bring it back down, slide it back under. Switch to the other side. Left leg right, left arm right leg. Lengthens long. Keep pressing into the points of support towards the mat. If you feel like you want to lift today, go ahead and lift. Keep those hip bones square. Back down, slide it in. The goal here is to keep the spine in the exact same spot the whole time and without shifting the hips from side to side. Staying connected in the core, pressing out of the shoulder, letting that deep muscle structure get a nice workout here. A lot of cross muscle chains working here. Finding that opposition in the body, reaching in both directions, left and right side, forward and back, everything working. If you haven't already, connect it with the breath. Inhale, lengthen and lift. Exhale, lower and back. One more time each side. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. In. And out. Come back to all fours. Get a little cat and cow in the body, rolling the middle back up towards the spine, top of the head and tailbone curl under, and then find a nice long curve, back extension, top of the head and tailbone, reach up towards the ceiling. Again, press into the mat, round the middle back up, and find a nice long curve. One more, inhale. And exhale. And from here, we're going to come down onto lying down on your stomach, bringing the arms into a cactus position. So you want your elbows in line with the shoulders, a 90-degree in the elbow. Forearms are parallel to one another. Bringing your forehead to the mat. Gonna lift just so you can hear me. Legs are hip width apart. We're gonna press the fronts of the feet down towards the mat so they're nice and strong, and maybe the kneecaps will pop a little away from the mat. The pelvis, that front triangular surface we spoke about at the beginning of class, the two hip bones and the pubic bone, are in connection with the mat. Slide the shoulder blades down and away from each other. So see if you can create a bit more space between those shoulder blades. Forehead stays down on the mat. Just the arms are going to lift away from the mat, parallel to the floor, and back down. So we have a long lower back here, belly pulling in and up. The arms lift, staying in that cactus position, and lower. Strong in the lower body, keep pressing into the fronts of the feet, tops of the feet. Inhale, open the rib cage in all directions. Exhale back. In and out. In and out. Keep reaching those shoulder blades wide. 2 more times. In, out. Last one. And down. This time keeping the forearms in cactus, but keeping them down on the mat without any weight into the arms. Just the face is going to lift up away from the mat. So here, check in. We don't want the chin to be sliding forward. We really want to just lift the forehead and the nose away from the mat, keeping the eyes down, long back of the neck, and bring the forehead back down. Working all the tiny muscles along the full spine. Keep the legs strong. Belly in towards the spine. So there's no extra weight in my arms, they're just relaxed down. Shoulder blades are still sliding down towards the hips. Again, you can continue with this, or on your next one, we're going to stay up with the face. Again, keep the eyes down towards the mat. We add the arms and lower just the arms. So keep pressing into the feet. Head stays lifted the whole time. And we come back to the movement of the arms lifting and lowering. Keep the navel pulling in towards the spine. Front of the hips connected with the mat. Inhale. Exhale. If you're ready for a little bit further, we're going to go one more step, reaching up in the arms, and this time lengthen the fingertips up above the head, keep the eyes towards the mat, bring the arms back to cactus. Again, lengthen the arms up above the head, and bring it back, long lower back, 2 more times. Inhale. Exhale. Feel those back muscles working, feel the core working. Exhale, release it down, turn one ear to the mat, take a breath. You can always close your eyes, really release everything, shoulders, belly, back, legs. And slowly bring your forehead back towards the mat. Here, if it's more comfortable, you can also stack your hands under the forehead, giving a little support. You can keep the upper body fairly relaxed, but the core is still engaged. This time, working with the lower body, keep the legs hip-width apart, still reaching strong in both legs, pointing the toes, kneecaps lift. Keep the hip bones connected with the mat. The right leg is going to continue to lengthen and start to peel away from the mat. Here, keep the back of the knee nice and open. We want to avoid bending the knee. So really reach the toes long. I say toes long. And back down, switching to the other leg. Lengthen and lift. And lower. We want to aim for the legs to stay in a parallel position, so kneecaps are always facing down towards the mat. Really lengthening again out of that hip socket. So press the hips, the pubic bone down towards the mat, lengthen and lift just the leg. You either stay with switching from one leg to the other, or we're going to switch the legs at the same time, in fact, so as one lifts, the other lowers. So you're in support of both legs the whole time. Belly in towards the spine. Again, you can stick with this variation, or taking it one step further, we lift both legs at the same time and lower both. Lengthen and lift. Lengthen and lower. Keeping a long lower back, belly in. Inhale. Exhale. For 2. And 1. Release it down. Turn your other ear to the mat. Take a little breath. Slowly bring your forehead back to the mat, bringing the arms back to cactus. This time we're going to squeeze our legs together. Again, reaching the toenails nice and far, activating those inner thighs. We're going to bring the upper and lower bodies up together. So nice and strong in the core, belly in and up. Hips pressing down towards the mat. Squeeze the legs, engage the glutes, engage everything towards the midline. Crown of the head reaches forward, toes reach back. Everything lifts. Again, keep the eyes down towards the mat. You can even add the arms up, staying in cactus. Everything lifts, everything lowers. Lengthen and lift. Lengthen and lower. Inhale. Exhale. In and out. On this next one, we stay up. Lengthen the fingertips up above the head. Open the legs about hip width apart, going for a little swimming motion, little flutter in the arms and the legs. We go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Press the hands into the mat. Slowly shift the hips back, finding a little child's pose. Reach the sit bones down towards the heels. Relax the forehead towards the mat or onto your block or towel, and just release the arms. With the inhale, let the belly expand towards the thighs. And on the exhale, see if you can release your hips and head a little bit more. Starting from the tailbone, slowly rolling up. One vertebra at a time. Head is the last thing. Coming to a tall spine. Let's finish off with a little roll in the shoulders in one direction. And in the other direction. And release. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day or evening. And feel free, if you have any comments or questions, to comment below the video. All right, thank you.